Hello and welcome to another episode of Can't Stop the Growth. I'm your host, Chad Peterman, and today I have a very special guest, another Midwestern friend of mine, and as I found out doing research for the podcast, a Purdue grad, so I know my wife will be happy to know that. Probably not super happy after their performance last weekend, but the previous weekend was a much better result. Without any further ado, I would like to welcome the president of Mendel Plumbing and Heating, Tom Mascari. Welcome to the podcast, Tom.
Thank you, Chad. Good to be with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for taking a little bit of time. Excited to chat with you. I think I was up at your place. Shoot, it's been probably four years ago, three.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah,
A gracious host. We had a group of guys up there for the service system, and popped over there to say hello to you guys. But I guess to get started, why don't you give us a little bit of your background, and then obviously your journey with Mendel.
Yeah. Well, my background is a little bit more varied than perhaps some in the industry. I can kind of break it down into thirds. First third, I spent in industrial automation systems, two big companies, Siemens and Rockwell. Second third of my career was in the food business. We started an e-commerce business back in 2000, followed up by running a large food distributorship for some time. And then from there, I moved over to food flavoring. So that was a middle third. And then the last third has been in this business. So I've been involved with plumbing, heating, and the various trades of the last 10 years. My background and what transitions from industry to industry is one of just leadership and operations. That's really what my focus areas are, and I've learned that those translate really well between industries, and you can take those anywhere. So I've spent my last 10 years here at Mendel leading their organization here.
That's fantastic, and definitely always great to talk to somebody who's kind of got that varied experience. I myself didn't ever work out in the field or anything like that. Graduated from college and went off, worked outside the industry, and then came back and got involved with the family business. What was the one thing as you got into the heating and plumbing space that surprised you when you first got into it?
Well, I think the biggest change for me was leaving the corporate environment, doing B2B work and moving into B2C. This is my first foray into dealing directly with consumers, and that's a whole different animal in and of itself. And all the dynamics that go around that frontline care when you're working directly with consumers. And that took me a little while to get adjusted to that. That's probably the big thing I remember walking in and going, wow, this is a little different than I would have expected, dealing directly with the end consumer as an individual versus a business.
Absolutely. What brought you to Mendel? What did that process look like? Was it, involved? How did you find yourself there in right now, the heating and plumbing space?
Yeah. Well, Mike Mendel, owner of our company, and I met probably 15 years ago at a leadership kind of coaching, kind of development group here in town. A lot of C-level kind of guys. And I got acquainted there. Mike, as you can tell by the name of the business, founded the business about 36 years ago. Great visionary, typical entrepreneur, not very good with the details and the everyday operations management, and self-admitted visionary. And so he came to understand my strengths, and I was at a point where I was ready to make a change, and he invited me to come in, just learn about his business. Never even thought about plumbing and heating, but he had built such a great company here with a great culture, really caring about people, just fit a lot of my values, and just a very natural fit for me to come on board. So I came over and joined him about 10 years ago and took over the reins. Mike's still involved with the business. I see him, daily, but I run the business day to day and just check in with him as needed.
Awesome. That's one thing I want to touch on, and basically for selfish reasons, because myself and my brother have a very similar relationship as far as, kind of the visionary and then the implementer. Tell me a little bit about that relationship with Mike. Were there any, growing pains at the beginning, just kind of getting acquainted, and then, how has that relationship, grown over the past 10 years?
Yeah, I think the only growth came in just, it took some time just to build trust, and for both of us, but certainly for him, for me. When you're going to hand your business over to somebody to make your day-to-day decisions, I'm sure it felt a little unnerving for him after all those years of handing it to somebody and saying, I sure hope they make decisions the way I hope that they do. And it just took him, I think, a little while to see our values and see how they played out in my leadership style and how I handle certain situations. I think that was probably the biggest thing for us, was it took some time to get acclimated that way. But once that fell into place, Mike, he felt the pain of not having somebody, as you said, in an implementer role, an executor that could get things done and make things stick for many, many years. And he was ready to kind of step out of that role, which was just kind of a fish out of water role for him for many years. And just the pain that brought him and hand that over. So he quickly started stepping out of the day-to-day business. After I got here, probably 6 months to a year, his role had changed dramatically.
Yeah. And I think that's a great piece of advice for, I'm sure we have a lot of, business leaders listening, and that piece of understanding how you're wired. Are you an implementer? Are you a visionary? I know for myself, really over this last year, have really gotten out of I used to try to do both, and doing both is very, very difficult. And oftentimes you're going to fall short on one of those roles. Which is ultimately going to hurt the business. And, I was fortunate enough to have two, really, my brother and then also Christy, who's our operations manager, really take care of a lot of the implementing on our end, along with the rest of our team. But that really allows me to kind of be in my comfort zone and not screw things up. I was notorious for, I got this big grand idea, but I couldn't put it in play to save my life because it was just, it didn't resonate with me to, see it all the way through and write out the SOPs and all of that stuff. That I think you really need the two of them working together to really make things move. What are some of those things that you guys have seen take off now that you guys have it's been 10 years, but things that flow really seamlessly between that. And I guess I ask you that just to give people a little bit of perspective of what that relationship could look like and where the positives come from with kind of knowing your role.
Specifically between Mike and I, Chad, what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Well, again, I think trust is a big part of that. Just learning how to trust each other is huge, and knowing where to touch base with each other. Part of that first 6 months or a year was learning with Mike. Where does he need to hear from me? Where does he not need my phone call, and where does he need to hear from me before I make a decision on certain things? And fortunately, some of my background experience, kind of help me learn those things in general, but to learn Mike's specific needs. Where does he need before this decision's made, or when this situation happens? What are the kind of things that really matter to him that he wants to hear from me on? That took some time to figure out, and spending some time to learn those things about each other, kind of putting curbs around the relationship. So, when I'm inside my curbs, Mike's position is don't bother me, just do your thing. When it's something outside those curbs, a particular employee issue that might pop up, or a certain business issue or financial issue, it's outside the curbs. Let's sit down and talk about this before we move forward, or at least just as an FYI, hey, this is something I'm dealing with. And that just took some time to figure that out. But once we got that going, I tell you, we haven't looked back. And I can't think of a single time in 10 years where, he or I felt, boy, I wish we would have talked about that before we did this, because we got that in such a nice groove that's worked really well for us for the period of time.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great to hear. I mean, you pointed it out earlier in the conversation about, it is hard for people to let go of that. I was probably grateful in some respects that my dad, who is probably more of an operator, who started the company, operator, integrator type, allowed me to do my thing. I think that maybe a little bit even harder transition of, that implementer letting a visionary kind of do their thing. Like, what exactly are you doing besides causing problems around here? But all good stuff there. So I guess as you've really situated yourself as the leader of the business and, really running the operations, I guess, how would you characterize kind of your leadership style and how you try to communicate to your team on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, and that's a great Great question. Great point to dig into. The leadership style I adopted early on, and it's become a little bit more mainstream in the last few decades or so, is the style called servant leadership, which is taking your team, identifying their needs, and figuring out, after you've cast a vision, after you put the right metrics in place for the individual managers you're working with, how do I come behind you and support you? How do I guide you? How do I help you succeed? And I've not always experienced that in the past with places I've been. A lot of places are sink or swim. Here's your role, figure it out, go ahead and conquer it. Otherwise, we'll find somebody who can. And I've always tried to be the type of leader, and hopefully have been to some degree, where my team feels supported, that I'm on their side, and I'm here to help them grow and succeed. And I think at the end of the day, leaders and managers, that's really our role. It's how we build people and help them be successful. And that's where I really want to spend a lot of my time, is in that coaching role, and that coming alongside role. The concepts that Nexstar teaches, I know a lot of organizations practice of regular one-on-one meetings, forces that activity for me, which is really good. Gives me a chance to hear how my team's doing, and where can I help them? And that's a specific question we have on our one-on-one form. What do you need from me right now? What can I do to help you? And being willing to assist and help in whatever those needs might be. Sometimes they're not even business needs, Chad. Sometimes they're personal needs, that might be impacting the business and their role in the business. And there's times where if they're distracted with something going on at home, how do we help remove that distraction, give you the time you need? Let's deal with that and get you back so you can focus. I mean, we can pretend that life lives in compartments, but we know in reality it doesn't. If I've got something going on at home and it's on my mind, it's going to affect my ability to produce and be impactful. So we have a question on our one-on-one form: what personal things and or business things are you dealing with that you might want to talk through that I can help you with? And there's times where we've given some people some time off, or cut their hours, or reduce some things, and say, let's get this nailed and get this out of the way, so you can get clarity of mind. Because ultimately, in the long term, I think that pays bigger dividends to the company.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit on a number of really good points there. The one that resonates with me the most is just simply being there for your team. Everybody gets caught up in kind of the business world, and we got to make these numbers and revenue and all of this stuff. But at the end of the day, it's not a machine making that; it's people. And so, as you said, sometimes personal lives, everybody, I was used to hear the phrase, well, leave your personal life at home. Who exactly does that? No one. It's a great thought. However, if you've got something, like you said, if you got something going on at home, that's probably going to affect you in one way or another. I always laughed. I said, well, if they have something good going on at home, should we let that affect their performance? Like, hey, I'm really excited to be here at work today. Everything's going right.
Yeah. The negative stuff, leave that at the door, though.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need any of that. We don't need any of that. But, you mentioned one-on-ones. What are some of those other things that either yourself or your leadership team do to really foster that environment of letting people know that they're cared for and that you're there for them? What are some of those things that you guys do there at Mendel?
Well, I'll let you know that really starts really at the beginning with our mission and vision, and I'll share that with you, Chad. But it'll probably surprise you, because it's completely different than probably anything you've ever seen. We've wrestled with our mission and vision for a number of years. In fact, we've adjusted it, and what we've settled on in the recent years is one that comes right out of Mike Mendel's heart, and it's the reason why the company existed and was founded. Is that Mike has always said, I want a company that people can come to, work every day, and just be happy and just enjoy what they do. Because we spend a lot of time together, we spend a lot of time doing this. I just want people to come and find a happy place for themselves. And so we wrestled with it, even with a consultant, and we rewrote our vision statement around our employees being happy. That's essentially our vision here at Mendel. It's not about how big we get. It's not about our profits. It's not about dominating the market and the typical vision statements that you see. It's about our team. And we had to just come to the reconciliation point of saying, everything kind of stems from that. If we have our company focused on how do we help our team be happy in their roles, in their lives, whatever it might be, that's a ripple effect. right? So if our team's happy, right, they're going to serve our clients. Hopefully our clients are going to, bleed off on the clients and they're going to be happy. If our clients are happy, they're buying things. If they're buying things, we're making profit. We're growing. They're sharing the word, right, with about us with other people. And then ultimately the company gets taken care of, right? And so we put that as our hinge pin. That's front and center for us. As goofy and as weird as it sounds, and it still does to me, with all my corporate background experience. We're about making our team happy, and what can we do in order to help raise the level of happiness among our team. That's really what the core of things. That's where it starts. And so we put that on paper, and that's in writing, and we work hard to live that. And so that's kind of where things start for us, is right at that point. Everything bleeds from there, and it's a filter that we can run all of our actions as managers and leaders through to say, are we helping this person? Are we engaged with this person? Are we dealing with whatever might be going on in their lives? And do we have them in a role that they enjoy? We talked about, different wirings of people. If you're not happy in your role, we got to deal with that, and that's not a, bad thing. We got to cut you loose and send you on your way. We've shifted people in roles from CSRs over to accounting and to HR. And we've had ladies moved around and guys moved around from different roles throughout the company. We'll try 3 or 4 different hats on, trying to find the role that somebody fits in. And it's amazing how when you find the one that fits, man, performance just takes off. So sometimes you got to try a few things on before you get it right, because as much as we wish everybody knew themselves extremely well and how they're wired, they don't always. And that's part of our responsibility, is to help them. And so when we can, we do. And so a little long-winded answer, but that's kind of where things start for us as a company, and everything kind of bleeds from there.
Yeah, no, that's a very similar philosophy that we have here, and I think that goes back to, you'd mentioned Nexstar, and obviously we're both members. Is they always teach, customer. If you take care of the customer, the revenue will follow. And I think where people sometimes get that backwards is we forget that our number one customer is the people that work for us, making them happy, making sure that they're in the right role, making sure that they, don't, whatever help they need, they get. And when you take care of that customer, yes, the customer that you're serving gets taken care of. And as you mentioned, yeah, the revenue will follow. Whereas when we get that mixed up and we put the revenue before our people, that's where we're too focused on average ticket and conversion rate and all those things that, are they important? Yeah, because we want to be good at what we do. But at the end of the day, making sure that person is in a good spot and in the right spot is going to lead to achieving those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's the old adage? People don't want to know how much you know, and don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right?
Yeah.
And our team, and we've talked about this, they need to know how much we care first. And only then, in my opinion, do the metrics even make sense. Because when they feel cared about, they feel like they matter, they feel like we're about them and their happiness. And then we say, oh, by the way, we're here to support you to hit these conversion rates and these average tickets. We're here to coach you and develop you, to be the top performer that you can be. Now they're listening, right? If to your point, they feel like they're just a cog in this big machine, right? And they don't really have any value other than what they deliver to us. How does that feed the human soul? It really doesn't, and we have to recognize that they're not machines. They are human beings. They have needs. We can deny that and pretend it doesn't exist to our own detriment. But if we acknowledge that and walk into that and embrace that, I feel that's where we unleash the power of the best potential.
Yeah, absolutely. I always think of it, you often hear, you have to hit this number. What if, as you said, and I'll kind of steal this from you, is, what would it look like if we said to our team, I want to help you hit this number?
Right.
What's that look like? As opposed to you need to hit it. And I always talk here is, if you took a group of technicians and you said, here's the bottom 20% that's not hitting their number. If we take ownership of the problem, is it a them problem or is it a we problem as a manager? Right. Have we taught them how to do that? Do they know? Like if you gave them, hey, how would you do this? Now, sometimes it's, maybe they're not following the process or whatever, but, there again, that comes back to coaching, which you talked about earlier for sure.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that we do talk about with our managers often is, it's so easy as a manager to be frustrated at a person that's not performing or not following a procedure, not getting things done the way we want. And the first thing I challenge our managers to do is look in the mirror. Have you done your responsibility as a manager to help that person succeed? Before you get on their case, I'm looking at you. You're responsible for helping them succeed. Have you done everything you can do to help them succeed? Well, they don't follow this procedure. They don't do this thing I keep asking. So have you clarified it in writing? Is it written down? Is the procedure clear and written down? Can I read it? And I'll challenge them to say, until you've shown you've done your work, don't be looking at them. I'm looking at you first as a manager. That's our responsibility to do everything we can to make sure they know what is expected of them and the tools are in place and the procedures are in place so they can succeed and hit the mark you want them to hit. And so my managers get used to hearing that question from me. When they're going to come in and talk to me about an issue they're having with somebody, I'm going to be putting a mirror up to them first and say, okay, let's look at you before we look at them. Have we done what we're responsible for?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the key to leadership, is understanding that principle. And I think that's the one thing, as we develop leaders, that we have to kind of, overcome, because if they've had a bad experience as it relates to leadership, they can often head down that wrong track where they're blaming everybody in their path except for looking in the mirror. As it relates to that, how do you develop, whether it be new leaders in the company, younger people to maybe take on a leadership role at some point in time? What do you guys do there that listeners could maybe take as far as a nugget or two that helps you guys develop your leadership team?
Yeah, well, like probably most companies, Chad, there's probably not a real strong science to it. It's a lot of art, is first of all trying to identify. They talked a lot as a super meeting. How do you identify that talent, right? And I like some of the tools they gave us at super meeting. I think there's some great tools there that you can use to help qualify people. Is what stage they are in their development and what strengths are they exhibiting that might parlay into different roles within the organization, including leadership. But we do try to watch for leadership rising. One of the adages we follow here is that people gravitate towards their center, right? They want to live from their center. So who are they as a person? And people will tend to act out of that center and their strengths in that center of who they are. And so if we just watch them and give them different opportunities and things and just watch how they respond, you can begin to see leaders start to rise. They start to float up. They start to take authority. They start to lead. They start to want to fix things and drive change and bring up issues with solutions, not just problems. And so we try to pay attention to what's happening out there among the team as we try different things and give people different opportunities. So from an informal art standpoint, that's kind of how we do things here. Is just kind of watch to see what's coming out of your center. Who are you as a person? And let's figure out, how do we figure out who that thumbprint is, that fingerprint that's on your soul as far as who you are. How do we create a role that fits you? Leaders or not, but leaders are involved with the question that you asked. From a formal standpoint, there's all kinds of leadership training, as we know, that's out there. And one of the big ones that we're big proponents of here, just because it's such a good self-rounding thing that certainly supports the servant leadership message I conveyed earlier, is Dale Carnegie training. They have a leadership management training program, a couple there that are just unlike anything else you can really get. They teach a lot of the not just the IQ parts of leadership and management. They teach the EQ parts, which is so much of what management leadership is dealing with people and how do you work with them and how do you lead them and what those dynamics look like. And we just really have found a lot of benefit in those programs from a formal standpoint for us.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And I think that's I took down a couple of notes as you were talking. One of the things that I bring this up mainly because we were talking about it yesterday in a meeting was that you talked about trying to find people's center by exposing them to different things and challenging them with different situations and kind of seeing how they react. What do you guys do? Because I'm a huge believer that a lot of recruiting and leadership development is in the recruiting and interview process, finding the right person. I think as it relates to ownership, one of the things we said is, we've got this turnover and rather than blaming the people for leaving, like, what did we do wrong? Like, where was it? Was it at the very beginning? Was it in the middle? Was it in the end? How do you guys kind of deal with turnover and trying to, obviously everyone wants to lower it. What's that look like for you from a leadership perspective, and maybe some of the things you guys have implemented to help you in that, which is the most difficult process ever, is recruiting and interviewing and hiring. It is an art, as you said earlier, for sure.
Yeah, and there's so much I could share in response to your question. Let me see if I could just identify a couple of main points that might be the most helpful. When it comes to recruiting, I guess the first thing I would probably say there, Chad, is we hire. I guess what I'd say is we hire slowly. We try not to rush the hiring process, and it's just one thing that business has taught me, probably you as well, which is anytime I've seen like I've rushed into something and forced something to come together, even when signals were telling me these things probably don't fit very well, or maybe this isn't a great idea, but I just want to get it done and I forced it. I find myself kicking myself somewhere down the road that I should have listened to what was happening a little bit more closely. But even in the hiring process, we take our time in the hiring process. We're hiring a guy for our remodeling team right now, and we've probably been talking to him for a month. A couple conversations on the phone. We've had him in once, a couple emails back and forth. Now he's going to come in and we're going to do a ride along with him. It'll probably be 6 weeks or so of a hiring process with him before we bring him on board. And what I've communicated to him is that what's most important for us and for him is that the fit's right. And so we spend time to say, learn our culture, come in here and understand who we are as a team. We talk about our values, we show them our values, we tour them around, we have them meet people and talk to people, because this is where you're going to spend a lot of your time. And it's important for you and for us both that you feel a really good fit here as well as we do. And so making sure that they have time to gauge that culture even before they come in. I know some Nexstar companies have them come into tech meetings, come sit and listen to a tech meeting, interact with the guys. So we tend to take our time there. I know some other companies, they're just so rushed to try and get somebody, to fill a slot, and they don't want to spend that time. But you and I both know, boy, a little more invested time up front saves you a lot of headache on the backside when you talk about that turnover and misfits. And now I'm coaching a guy that probably shouldn't have ever been here and trying to help him to be successful, but we're just probably delaying the inevitable that it shouldn't have ever happened. So upfront on the recruiting side is one of those things. But then we do as many companies, we just keep working on the culture inside. Goes back to the happiness thing and making sure people feel cared about. If we sense that there's an issue with a team member, we make sure that we spend time to address that, on an individual basis, and whatever time that takes, we'll work with you. But that's from a culture standpoint on the inside, taking care of the good news. We have very little turnover here as a company. Of the 30 odd some trucks we have, 34, 35, I think. I mean, if we lose a technician every couple of years, that's a lot for us. We just work hard to solidify our team in place and again, slow on that hiring process. So we rarely have those misfits, fortunately, that end up blowing somebody out, or it just doesn't end up working for us. So the turnover in the office and in the field, both, to us, we measure it. We talk about it in our quarterly meetings, what our turnover looks like, and that's a value for us. So our team knows that it's important you guys stay. When we hire, we tell them in the hiring process, we hire for a lifetime. We will expect when you're coming in here, you're going to retire here. So that's how we take it slow and make sure we got a good fit coming in. That's probably the main points I could probably share with you here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are great points that any listener can take right back to their business and implement. Tracking turnover. I think that's one of the things that we're working on right now is how do we make it really visible, and then how do we make it kind of a team goal around our entire company of, hey, our goal is to keep this low. One of my favorite things is, especially in the plumbing, I feel like for whatever reason, it's plumbing, is that you bring a guy or gal in there that doesn't fit with the group, they'll tell you pretty darn quickly, like, yeah, this ain't gonna work.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
and you want that, you want that transparency between leadership and your guys who are going to be working with each other, because they're a team. And if they see that someone isn't going to fit, or that's going to, cause issues with the culture, that's really great to get out on the front end before, as you said, you hire them. So take the process slow, and, engage them in the culture, and let them see what it is. Because sometimes, I mean, we've had technicians like this. They're great technicians. They just don't fit with the group that we have. They'll be great somewhere else. And I think that that's important, is just because a guy can turn a wrench, or, has some really good sales numbers, supposedly, isn't the best reason to bring him on the team.
Exactly. Yeah, and it says, think of it like a magnet, right? I think we talk about culture as a magnet. It's got two poles, it attracts some and it's going to repel others, and that's completely okay. And that's what makes the world go round. And we want to make sure that our poles are attracting, when we bring somebody in. It really helps us, I think, in the long term, not have to deal with a lot of the turnover that I know is out there in the world.
Yeah, for sure. And I think your stat is definitely something to be commended. If you're only, losing a technician here and there every couple of years, whatever it may be, shoot, I mean, some of that's just due to, get relocated, or, many of things can come up. What do you coach your front? You mentioned one-on-ones, which I think is it's said so often, but yet still overlooked in the, the impact that those can have with your team and your direct reports. What other things do you do to coach some of those frontline managers that is really probably aided in those technicians always wanting to be there? There's the overall cultural thing, but those frontline managers have to be doing some things that you're coaching them to do that, allow those technicians to feel really appreciated.
And yeah, I appreciate the question, and I wish I had a great answer for you, some earth-shaking answer, but I feel like it's my role to set the tone for the organization, and Mike Mendel does the same thing. My role is to care as greatly as I can for my management team, right? So I have to model to them what I want them to do for their team, and so we don't even talk about it much, honestly. It's just one of those things you just kind of learn through osmosis, just by being a part of the culture. And I hope, and as I meet with our team in a one-on-one or in group settings as a management team, that they're feeling that they matter to me as people, that I care about them. Yes, we want to succeed. Yes, we want to win. Yes, we want to deliver just an absolutely just top drawer product to our service to our clients. But I want you guys to know that you matter, and paying attention to the small details of what they do, showing appreciation, all those little, just small little things that sometimes get overlooked in the machine that we're trying to run here. And I hope that, through them feeling cared about and seeing how I interact with them, my hope is, and Mike as well, that they'll turn around and do that for their team, knowing that's the expectation, and not that I'm doing it because I'm checking a box. I'm doing it sincerely because they truly do matter to me as a person. And I don't think you can fake that. I think people are going to read right through that. And so I wish I had a bigger, wow answer for you, but I really don't. I mean, it's leading by example, right? I'm going to serve you and take care of you the best I can in your needs. I'm going to trust that you understanding that's part of our mission and vision here is to help with the happiness of our team. You'll turn around and do that to those that are reporting to you as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's a beautiful answer, and the fact that you didn't have a concrete answer of how you do that, I think speaks volumes about what you're actually doing. And if you would have given me, well, there's this 8-page curriculum that I try to, if you're having to teach your management team how to care about your people, well, one, it may be a you problem, because if they can't, as you said, if they're not seeing you set the tone, well, then they're going to act however they want to act. But if they're seeing you set the tone of man, this guy really cares about what I'm doing, and so on and so forth, that's going to permeate throughout the entire organization. And,
Hope so.
I just think it speaks to what you talked about earlier, taking ownership of, hey, looking in that mirror and saying, hey, what can I do? If turnover is on the rise, well, what can I do from my seat to make sure that everybody knows that they're cared about here? Make sure everybody knows that they've got a place here, and that there's a career here for them. So I really appreciate the candid answer. I think that is something that everybody can learn from, is setting the tone. Your organization is going to move at the speed that you as the leader move, whether that's, out of control, well, then your organization may be a little bit out of control. It's amazing how it kind of takes on your persona. I don't know if you've noticed that as you've tried to lead, and hey, we need to do these things. And, what would you say to that as far as it taking on your persona, or that of Mike's? Obviously he's still a big part of the organization. What would you say to that?
100% agree. I mean, I was fortunate that, Mike had already set the tone and the culture for this company well before I got here. And I was just blessed because it matched up with my values, who I am as a person. I mean, and what are the chances of that, right? I mean, there's so many different cultures and companies that are out there. I couldn't imagine one that would fit me personally better. So it was a very easy transition for me to come here, because I could just be me and live me, and it fit right in with the culture here. One other point I was going to make as far as the team caring for them too is that culture, that caring culture, I think is like a glue. And not that we're perfect as an organization, because we're not, right? I mean, we've got issues we got to improve, and things that need to get better, and mistakes that we make. But if you got that caring culture, where people feel that they matter, right, and their happiness matters to us, what that affords us is a chance to fix things with people when they occur, right? So if one of our team members has an issue, they're upset about something, name it, whatever it might be, where in other cultures where they don't feel cared about, that person might blow out and you'll never know why you lost it, right? Culture, we believe, gives us a chance to have that conversation. They're going to come to us because hopefully they feel that they matter, and they're going to share their heart with us. In fact, I just had it happen this morning. One of our CSRs is a little bit out of sorts with some pay issues that she doesn't feel were handled correctly. She could have just left. She could have walked out the door yesterday and never even told us what happened. Found another job and just put in 2 weeks and be gone. But just this morning, literally before I got on the call with you, she walked in and just asked if she could have some attention, and gave it to her, and it gave us a chance to hear the conversation. And now we got a decision we can make. At least we can work with it. We got a chance to deal with it. And again, if she didn't feel that she mattered and that we cared about her, I probably wouldn't have had that person walk in the door this morning. So that's the other thing it affords to us, is from a retention standpoint, it's a chance to have those last conversations before someone just disappears. Because at the end of the day, if they don't feel they're cared for, why even have the conversation? So I think that helps us a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a wonderful point of, kind of what are you doing to earn the right to have that conversation? What would make someone feel comfortable enough to walk into your office and say, hey, I've got an issue here. And I think the reason that people are comfortable is because they know that you truly do care, and you truly you will make things right. And at the outset of probably whatever you did, you wanted to make it right. It just so happened that, it got goofed up. It probably wasn't intended to be, detrimental to anybody. It just, stuff happens. The only reason that they come to you is because they think that there's a chance that you're going to make it right.
Right.
If they didn't think that you were going to make it right, if they just thought, hey, they're just trying to get one over on me, then like you said, they're going to put in their 2 weeks and head on out the door.
Right. Yeah.
So, well, I think that's interesting. Is as far as I've never really thought about it like that, but I'm going to start is, what are you doing to earn the right to have that conversation? So that thank you for sharing that. That's really hit me as it, just relates to what we're talking about and just leadership in general.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thanks, Chad. I feel like it's a failure. I mean, if I have a person walk out the door and they didn't come to us first and have a conversation with us, I feel like, how do we fail that person? That they didn't trust us enough. They didn't feel cared about them as enough to come and at least talk to us. If there was an issue that was out there and they left before talking to us, we as a team failed. And I take that to heart. Because like you said, we make mistakes. We're going to forget to do something, or we're going to make a commitment and just get dropped. Mistakes happen. Perceptions happen, misperceptions happen. But boy, I feel like it's a failure. If we ever have a person walk out the door and we didn't have a chance to talk, we missed it.
Yeah.
We take it to heart. That's serious.
For sure. Well, as we kind of wrap up here, I'm going to give you a chance to kind of share some parting wisdom to leaders out there, whether they're on their or they've reached a level of leadership, or they're on their way to doing that. I'm a firm believer in that the greatest leadership challenge we all have is leading ourselves. What's something you're doing as a leader, whether it's a book you're reading or podcast you're listening to, or what are you doing right now that you're finding beneficial to your leadership growth?
Most important for me that I find value in is just having people around me that'll speak truth to me. I've got one gentleman we meet with on a monthly basis, as consultant to financial guy, because Mike is a little bit more removed from business today. This gentleman does a great job of just speaking truth to me. And if there's something that's not going right, he, even though he's a consultant with us, he's not gonna mince words. He's coming at me, and I need that, because we all have blind spots, and we never really arrive, right? I mean, we're all growing, and to have people around me who will speak truth into my life is a really important thing to help me to avoid some of those blind spots. And my management team as well. I ask them frequently, and I hope that they feel the freedom to tell me. But if there's something that I need to change or do differently, please let me know. I'm trying hard, but we're all imperfect. And if I got a blind spot, I need people to call it out for me. So that's probably where my primary growth comes from. It's just the people around me. I don't have necessarily any podcasts or any magic books that I read. So I can't really lend any of that. And my management style is really simple. To your point about parting words on leadership and management, I try to keep the aspect of leadership as simple as I can for me and for our team, and that is point the direction you want people to go. Right? And what are we trying to accomplish? And make sure it's clear. And one of the most important things, and I think sometimes people underestimate the importance of it, is make sure you're measuring the right things the right way. There's a lot of number spins that goes on, and we can fool ourselves with our numbers, or we can mismeasure some things that might head us in the wrong direction. But selecting those measures that you're going to ask your team to pay attention to, I think, is just critical. Because what we find in our culture, and I'm sure you probably do in yours too, Chad, is that if you got a team of people that care, right? They want to perform, they want to contribute, they want to be a part of something bigger than themselves, and they want to add value. If you just point them in the right direction, show them how they're measured, and then stand beside them or behind them and say, "Hey, I'm here to help you succeed," magic happens. I mean, it's just power, and the team just starts to march forward. And if they care, you don't have to get behind people. You don't have to push them. This whole aspect of how do you motivate your team? Honestly, we don't. We care about them. We put the measures out in front of them, and we step beside them and say, "We're here to help you succeed and be the best that you can possibly be. How can we help you?" And if the right people are hired on board, they just start to march. But those measures are critical, because people will step up to the expectation you put in front of them, but you got to be clear and you got to be right about it. And so we work really hard on making sure our measures are correct at our management level and certainly our team level. So the folks who have measures on them, that they know what's being expected of them. So that's probably the most important thing I could probably share, just from a simplicity of leadership standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom, I can't thank you enough. I think this This episode is going to have a ton of great points for leaders to take with them back to their companies and hopefully share. And if I had to if I had to pull out kind of one word to summarize, what we've talked about today, that word, I think, to me would be accountability. And accountability in leadership is, as you said, looking in the mirror. What are we doing? What are we doing from a front end perspective? What are we doing in the middle? What are we even doing at the end? Having a conversation with somebody who's a little bit disgruntled or, confused or, has some misinformation, whatever it may be. What are we going to do? Where are we going to point that finger and say, hey, we're heading here. I'm here to help, and I'm going to do everything in my power to know that you're cared about along the way. To me, that is some fantastic advice for anyone looking to impact their team. It all begins and ends with accountability. And that's not holding your team to a standard, that's holding yourself to a standard. That's understanding what you need to do as a leader to be there for your people and to help them rise to a level that hopefully they never thought possible. That's when you truly see that success. So again, Tom, I really appreciate your time, really appreciate all that you shared with the audience. Yeah, just really appreciate you coming on. So thank you so much.
Thanks for the opportunity, Chad. Good to be with you guys. Appreciate the time.
Absolutely. And with that, again, another episode. Hopefully you can take something from this. I know you can. A lot of great information. And until next time, we'll see you.